Friendships. It's an opportunity to reach out to the needy full-time around the world. They're now taking applications and they need help in the areas of mechanics, maritime, including deck, engine, and steward departments, food service, warehousing, and office. Check it out at friendships.org or call 337-433-5022. 337-433-5022.
Welcome to Election Coverage 2016 on American Family Radio, an analysis of Super Tuesday results from a biblical perspective, brought to you in part by AFA Action.
Hey, welcome everybody to our coverage here of Super Tuesday. I'm Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association and American Family Radio. We're going to be talking about what's happening across the country. In many states, 11 states voted in the Republican primary, or had a Republican primary, and then 14 states, I believe, cast votes in the Democrat primary. Got a panel with me, yet to be seen whether they're distinguished or not. We'll tell at the end of the evening. But Fred Jackson, news director for OneNewsNow.com, American Family News. Good evening, Fred.
Good to be with you guys. Exciting night.
And Ed Vitagliano, Executive Vice President here at American Family Association and co-host with me on today's issues, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Ed, good to see you.
Good evening.
And Walker Wildman, who is Assistant to the President. That would be me. I wonder how you got that job.
Is that who the President is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You had an inside track to that job, huh? Anyway, Walker's going to be with us. He's a political science graduate, not a major.
That's right, graduate.
Graduate from Mississippi State University, and Walker is going to be, you're going to be tracking the results as they go along, and they're coming in.
Yeah, Fred and I are going to have a competition on who gets the results in fastest.
Hey, we'll jump on it.
All right. Well, Fred, tell us what's going on so far.
Well, the polls have been closed in some of the states, such as Georgia, Vermont, and Virginia, for an hour now, and polls have just closed in Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and in parts of Texas. The networks, the major news agencies, doing some calling already. Let me go down the list. On the Republican side of things, they have called Donald Trump the winner in Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, and Tennessee. Once again, Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, and Tennessee. The networks, the major news agencies calling Trump the winner in those four states already. On the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton taking Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia. Bernie Sanders, the one state, no big surprise there, took his home state of Vermont. So that's where we are so far tonight. I was talking earlier, guys, about looking at Real Clear Politics, which takes a compilation of all the polling going on out there. And so far tonight, having looked at their compilations earlier today, the polls are showing exactly how the people have been voting so far today.
Yeah, the polls have been right since Iowa.
They have been.
And it was hard to poll a caucus state like Iowa. And it was about a 7-point. They were off by about 7 percentage points that night because Cruz beat Donald Trump. But since then, we've had primary states, with the exception, I think, of only Nevada, and Trump's been finishing just as he had been predicted to finish, according to the polls. Ed, what do you see going on out there?
Well, one of the things that we're looking at is that even though these the major networks are calling these states, the majority so far for Trump and Hillary Clinton, we are going to have to wait on into the evening because there are proportional delegate assignments in these states. So they have to wait until the votes come in to decide or to find out who gets what percentage of the vote. Caucus states like Colorado later on and Alaska, they'll start their caucusing today, but won't finish for weeks, the tallying. So there will be some hesitation for us here to declare who gets how many delegates tonight. But in terms of who is winning the states, as both you and Fred have pointed out, Tim, the polls have been pretty accurate. So especially the Real Clear Politics polls that kind of average and blend a lot of the polls that are out there have been pretty accurate.
The other thing that's been very interesting so far today, there's been polling agencies talking to people coming out after they vote. Why are you voting the way they are? It's fascinating. On the Republican side of things, at least 8 in 10 GOP primary voters in the 9 states have negative thoughts towards Washington. And people have been asking, what is driving this flood of people towards Donald Trump? And there you have it again. We saw this in some of the exit polling in the early primaries, very consistent again today. People do not want another politician representing them. They want a non-politician. They're fed up with Washington. 8 out of 10, 80% in these exit polls saying, I'm tired of Washington.
Well, and one of the things on the Democratic side that seems to be driving the primary season so far is that, and Fred, I was talking to you before we went on the air, and it looks like most of the Democrats want the Obama administration's policies kept intact and continued. So on the Democratic side of the aisle, they want somebody in there who can get elected, which I think the suspicion is for many Democrats, Bernie Sanders would not get elected to the White House. Hillary Clinton's their best bet to continue the Obama administration.
We're live streaming, folks. If you go to American Family Radio, AFR.net, we're live video streaming. So if you've been wanting to see what Ed looked like, now's your night.
Don't do it.
You'll be disappointed.
Well, and we got ties on, and except for Walker. Walker's over. He's the working man.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rest of us are.
I'm the blue collar.
Yeah, we're the white collar. But Walker, what you got over there?
Yeah, I'm going to bring some humor to the table.
Yeah, Donald Trump already does that, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, this is about Donald Trump. Speaking of the elephant in the room.
Okay.
So the Atlantic online website, one of the writers wrote an article basically asking the question, why are so many people voting for Trump? Why does he have so many fans?
Right.
And so what he did,
and he does. He's racking up tonight.
Yeah, he is. He's doing very well. So he did a survey, online survey. So people sent in their opinion of why they like Donald Trump.
Right.
And here's just a couple of them, and these are definitely not.
Are these sort of representative of?
Yeah, I don't know how he pulled them, but I guess he pulled the ones that were the funniest because these are pretty out there. But one guy said, "Desperate people cast desperate votes."
Okay,
and his
just to make sure the Trump fans understand, because there's a lot of them listening to our program. We're just having a little fun here,
right?
Because you're saying why is Trump winning so much, and some people say things like.
This guy said desperate people cast desperate votes, and then he goes on to explain
some truth to that, too. Go ahead.
Wall Street, the banks, and even illegal immigrants seem to be prospering more than the average American citizen. Mm-hmm. We are desperate.
Desperation. To Fred's point.
Yeah.
So so the desperation, you could laugh about that, but you could translate that to a couple of other words: frustration and also anger, quite frankly. And another thing I want to point out, as others I've heard point out, is Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas. He also for his folks, they are also angry and upset and frustrated.
Yeah. So
if you were to combine Trump with Cruz in terms of the vote numbers, then you're talking upwards of 75%. Of 75% of the voters in the Republican primary are saying, we feel. I've heard the word betrayal used. Senator Jeff Sessions said betrayal when Republicans passed the omnibus. Go ahead.
And a lot of the Trump fans that may be listening may relate to this. This person said was asked why you support Trump, and they said Trump is an alpha male who loves America, unlike Obama. And then they go on to say, Trump has never lied to me, which that could be debatable. He says, Trump has never lied to me, whereas all of the other Republican politicians, and then he says, like McConnell and Boehner have, they don't fight for my side. Nobody fights for my side. And then he says, Trump fights, Trump wins. I want an alpha male who is going to take it to the enemy. I'm tired of supporting losers.
Well, is that it, Fred? Is that basically what you were talking about?
Yeah, exactly. The other dynamic I think that's worth mentioning, been looking at the numbers of people coming out to vote, Democrat, Republican. In South Carolina, in the primary just a few weeks ago, the number of people voting down 16% from 2008. On the Republican side of things, there's huge interest in this election, and it's showing up in these primaries. Huge turnouts for Republicans. Regardless of who the players are, there's a lot of energy out there in the Republican camp right now. And unlike other elections the last couple of cycles, it looks like Republicans are at least going to go to the polls. They may not vote for the person that you want, but they are going to go to the polls.
Well, and one other thing that we're looking at, in a lot of these states, there is a threshold. First of all, there's a threshold in a lot of these states that you don't get any delegates if you don't, for example, make 20%. It's a qualifying threshold, for example, in Alabama. But most of these states also have a threshold for winner-take-all. Mm-hmm. So in Alabama, for example, the winner-take-all threshold is 50%, and in that state, Donald Trump is hovering around 47, 48%. So if he does not make 50% in Alabama, this as an example, the way some of these primaries work, then he splits the delegates with the other people who have qualified at 20% proportionally to your percentage. But if he gets over 50% in a couple of these states, he racks up all the delegates, which makes it the momentum even greater. So we'll be paying attention as the results come in. The percentages build one way or the other. We'll try to keep an eye on those thresholds.
You're listening to American Family Radio's Super Tuesday coverage. We're doing something we haven't done before. We are putting our video stream on Facebook, so American Family Radio's Facebook page. Check that out, American Family Radio's Facebook page. And we're going to be covering the results. So the Central Time Zone polls now are closing. So those results will start being tallied. Alabama and Tennessee have already been called for. So those are Central Time Zone states, with the exception of the eastern part of Tennessee, for Donald Trump, as has Georgia and Massachusetts. So just to review here, Trump's, as predicted, is having a very good night thus far. 1% of the vote in Texas. Cruz was up 42 to 28, I think. That's 1% of the vote reporting. And Hillary Clinton will put the Sanders campaign RIP, okay, tonight. And she'll be able to save all her money for whoever the Republican nominee is. That's one thing. If you wrap it up early, you don't have to spend money fighting off your other primary contenders. And so that's good news if you're in the Hillary Clinton camp. And we'll see what happens in the coming days with Bernie Sanders, if he decides to stay in or not. Well, Sandy Rios is with us. Sandy Rios in the Morning is heard on American Family Radio Talk each weekday morning. And Sandy is Director of Governmental Affairs for the American Family Association and lives in the Washington, D.C. area. And she's with us. Sandy, good evening.
Hello, Tim. This is Sandy Rios at night. Recognize me?
Oh, wow.
I'm coming down with something. I think I've got Super Tuesday bug or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It really is me, even though I don't sound like myself.
Yeah, I noticed. I didn't know you sounded
yes.
a little different, a little bit more, a deeper voice there, maybe. Anyway, hey, Sandy, Virginia, the state you're familiar with there. How's that going tonight?
Well, of course, Trump is leading in Virginia. Virginia's a very purple state. And keep in mind that this really is the playground for the Republican establishment. This is where they dwell. The southern part of the state, which I imagine that I haven't looked at a screen in a bit because I've been sitting in the studio, but the southern part of the state is just bound to be more conservative. So the last count I saw was Donald Trump in the lead and Marco Rubio running second. But again, if the southern part of Virginia comes in a little bit later tonight, I expect that that's going to change somewhat. Another interesting thing coming out of Virginia, this is really interesting to me, and I think it will be to you guys too. Dave Bratt is the congressman that beat Eric Cantor in a surprise upset a couple of years ago. And of course, it was over, the whole thing was the issue of immigration, and it was the Gang of Eight bill. And suddenly, this minority whip in the House, who is so charismatic and handsome and has this bright political future, is taken out by an unknown man named Dave Bratt. Well, there is, blood in the water and vengeance, and a candidate who is a sheriff in the southern part of Virginia, very popular, was expected to throw in his hat in opposition to Dave Bratt. Dave has been a fabulous congressperson. He's very principled. He's a economics professor, and he has a degree also in theology, I think, from Princeton. So he's just a really has a tremendous future, whatever he does. But this sheriff, also very popular, was supposed to have challenged Dave, but he was supposed to have gotten in his application to be the primary challenger by 5 o'clock today, and he did not do it. So that Dave Bratt now, tons of money was going to be poured into that race, and now no more. So that's a really interesting piece of news coming out of Virginia.
Okay, Sandy, why is Donald Trump doing so well across the country in the Republican primaries? He is not really a Republican, and please, if you're a Trump supporter, well, maybe you're proud of that, but don't take offense, because that's just the truth. He's really not a Republican. He's more of an independent in his policy and in his history, so that's just a fact. He's thrown his hat in the ring on the Republican side, maybe because he more closely identifies with the Republicans than the Democrats currently in his political ideology. But I say all that to ask the question again, why is a fellow who's not been a Republican, not really a conservative, doing so well with Republicans and conservatives?
You know, I think it's pretty simple, Tim, actually. How many times have we talked, till I survived losing my voice, probably, because I talk about the repeated betrayals of the Republican Party to the American people. Conservatives primarily, whether it's, immigration. Oh, when we get in office, we're going to, we're going to fight the president on those illegal executive amnesty orders, and they do nothing. Oh, we're going to defund Planned Parenthood. We're going to do everything we can. This is terrible that they might be selling baby body parts, and they increase funding. Oh, we're going to stop this trade bill that, gives up our sovereignty, that is so long and complicated and is the product of Barack Obama, and we're going to
broken promises by the Republican Party in Washington have led to Trump's rise.
And not fighting, just sitting in Congress and rolling over. We're not going to criticize the president. Oh, no. In fact, they've given him everything. Mitch McConnell just said, a couple of weeks ago, that we were not going to fight. He's not going to fight the president for the rest of the term. That's before Scalia died.
Yeah.
So people are sick of people not fighting. They see in Trump a fighter, a grown-up who's willing to go into the ring, however careless and however his record is not good, but people are frustrated, and they know that we are in a very dangerous place, and they believe that Trump means what he says, that they are not informed about that.
Yeah. Another thing to remember here in terms of the frustration, maybe this isn't at the very top, but it's in the list of things that Republican voters are frustrated about, and thus the rise of Donald Trump, is we've just gone over, I think, or at least $19 trillion in debt that our country owes, with no end in sight. There's no end in sight. You tell me, folks, can a sovereign country go 25 trillion, 30 trillion, 50 trillion? When does our whole way of life come crashing down? Nobody seems to be interested in that question, the Republicans included, and they're supposed to be the party of fiscal discipline, and they're just they're breaking the bank with Obama. Keep in mind, yes, Obama bears maybe a lion's share of the responsibility for getting us, adding $10 trillion almost, it will be, on his watch to our national debt. But for several of those years, 6 of those years, he's had a Republican Congress sign off on that increase in the debt. So therein lies a lot of the frustration, too, anger, and fear that the many in the Republican voter base have. And the one thing related to what I just said, which I think bears noting, Sandy, you talked about how the Republicans won't fight Obama, have not fought President Obama on a lot of these things. They whine and complain and shout about it, but in the end, they don't do anything to stop it. Here it is. I think the Republicans will not vote against a spending bill. okay, to fund the federal government. They will not. They will not vote against it. President Obama, the Democrats know that the Republicans have surrendered the power of the purse. And so if you tell the other side in a football game the play you're going to run, guess what? They're going to stop it. In this case, the Republicans said, we're not going to fight President Obama on funding. So President Obama laughs and says, they're not going to stop anything I want because they're not going to, quote, shut down the government. So if you take away that leverage, then you are impotent to stop somebody. So I don't even know why the Republicans say we're going to stop and fight this, because no, you're not when it comes to funding it. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. Hey, Sandy, go ahead, Sandy. One last comment, and then we're going to let you go and rest your voice.
All right. I just have to say the thing that is so discouraging about what's happening right now, and I'll try to make this as concise as I can, is that there is a candidate in this race who has laid it on the line, who has fought each of those issues, who is so hated by his colleagues because he has fought. He's made them look bad. In fact, they hate him so much that Lindsey Graham just said a few days ago that if Ted Cruz were shot and killed on the Senate floor, and if the killer were tried, no one would find him guilty. That's the atmosphere which Ted Cruz walks in. He has been the champion. I've been on the front row of his fight against Planned Parenthood funding. Remember the filibuster he did to try to stop Obamacare in the last hours before it went into effect, and it was too late to stop it. He has fought all of these things. He is a man of principle. He's capable.
He's mocked by the Republican establishment.
And he is rejected by Christians because, why? Because somehow he got branded, and I think it started with Dr. Carson, as a liar. And he is not a liar. He is not a liar. Those things are slanderous, and every allegation against him, there may have been some carelessness.
Well, Donald Trump repeats it every day.
He repeats it, and so did Rubio. So he's been branded, and it's like he can't shake that loose. And Christians are, for whatever reason, so willing to believe terrible things about their own. I don't understand that. Well,
and Mr. Trump has a proven record of flip-flopping, if that's what you want to call it, not so long ago on a lot of these issues. But again, that's academic kind of at this point, because the Republican voters are speaking that they prefer Donald Trump over the others. And so we'll see how the evening goes. Thank you, Sandy.
You're
Appreciate
welcome,
it.
Tim. Good night to all of you.
Okay.
Sandy.
You're listening to American Family Radio's coverage of Super Tuesday. It's called Super Tuesday because there are so many states voting today in both the Republican and the Democrat primaries. 11 Republican, 14 Democrat. So this day goes a long way towards deciding who will be the respective nominees. Walker, did you have anything?
Right now in Oklahoma, their polls have closed. Trump is at 33%. Cruz is behind him at 27%, and then Rubio is following that at 24%.
Yeah, Fred, you got anything you want to add to that?
No, when we come
want to
back
add to our debt, Fred? You want to help us close in on $20 trillion?
I want to spin out of what you said why the Republicans seem to be intimidated. I think there's another reason to it.
You think there's another reason to?
Yes.
All right, we're going to be back. We're going to take a short break right here. Brian Fisher from Focal Point here on American Family Radio Talk will give us his thoughts. After the break, you're listening to AFR Super Tuesday coverage. Go to our Facebook page. We're live video streaming there for American Family Radio. We'll see you back here in a couple of minutes, folks.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes with this Fox News and commentary next. We are now facing one of the most defining presidential elections in American history. The fate of religious liberty hangs in the balance. Now more than ever, you need to engage your civic responsibilities and vote. But for Christians, it's more than just about voting. It's about being an informed voter. That's why my family uses the AFA Action Voter Guide. It's no secret that some candidates campaign one way and govern another. The AFA Action Voter Guide cuts through the rhetoric and provides you with the facts. Their guide breaks down where the candidates stand on the issues and who's funding their campaigns. Your vote should reflect your values, and the AFA Action Voter Guide is a great tool to help you accomplish that. You can find more information about the AFA Voter Guide at afaaction.net. That's afaaction.net. I'm Todd Starnes.
The AFA Action Voter Guide is an in-depth, web-based, nonpartisan, and user-friendly guide to inform voters on their choices in each election. We rate politicians on a scale from very liberal to very conservative. But what goes on behind this rating system? Our team of researchers looks at their history. Who is this person? How have they voted on bills in the past? Who are they giving money to? Who are they getting money from? Each candidate answers questions, and all of this information is then compiled and scored. This process is then multiplied all across the country without losing attention to detail. This will be your guide. The information you see will be customized for your ballot. On the website, you can get as much or as little detail as you want. Our goal is for you to be informed so that you can know your vote is making an impact. Small changes in voter mobilization can alter an election. Together, we can help return our nation to its founding principles. 5 million Christian households could literally elect a majority in Congress. By using this guide, you'll know that your choice is an informed one as we seek to change this country one vote at a time. Visit afaaction.net to access your voter guide.
You're listening to Election Coverage 2016 on American Family Radio, brought to you in part by AFA Action.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Super Tuesday here across the country. 11 states voting on the Republican side, 14 on the Democrat side. Say goodbye to Bernie Sanders. He's not pulled out yet, but he's dead politically. He's not going anywhere. Hillary Clinton is going to sweep the night, and on the Republican side, Donald Trump, as expected, is doing very well across these states. We don't know about Texas yet. I don't know. Cruz was up in Texas, and Oklahoma was close. But Fred, before we go to Brian, give us what the latest, if you would.
What the calls are so far: Trump taking Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, and Tennessee. We're still waiting on Virginia, a little bit too close to call. Trump and Rubio fairly close there in Virginia. On the Democrat side, Hillary declared the winner in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Virginia. And Sanders, as you pointed out, won his home state handily in Vermont.
Yeah, if it was just Vermont, he would be president. And then everybody have free everything. I don't know where Vermont would go to tax for their revenue, though. You know, where would they go, Ed, to find money to fund everything?
Don't look at me just because I grew up next door in New Hampshire. Even before I became a Christian, I was always conservative. But when I lived in New Hampshire, we didn't understand the people in Vermont even then. So that was from New Hampshire's perspective.
Yeah. All right, Brian Fisher joins us from Focal Point here on American Family Radio Talk. Brian, what's going on over there? I see you keeping up with something.
Well, I think the interesting thing now, really about the only suspense.
Come on, Brian. We don't want to lose our listeners. don't tell them everything's over. We're going to have them hanging around here.
Well, I mean, this is something that's worth hanging around for, and that is it's really a battle for second right now between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, because Donald Trump is obviously having a very, very good night. You know, the three states where Ted Cruz has a realistic chance to win would be Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma. So those are states to watch. If you're a Cruz supporter, those would be the states to keep a pretty good eye on.
Well, those three states, if he were to win those three states, I mean, he can at least claim three more than Marco Rubio, I guess you could say, if you want to.
Well, and that's going to be the issue for Marco Rubio. I mean, he's liable to be 0 for 16 after tonight. I don't think there's a state that he really has a realistic chance to win. Way down in
Florida, his home state.
Yeah, and March 15, he's down in Florida. If he loses on March 15 in his home state, it's hard for him to be able to justify continuing his campaign. So we could be down to a Trump-Cruz race at that point.
You know why I think Rubio's? I haven't read anything about this or seen any statistics. I'm just going on my own intuition, which has failed me many times in my life. But I will say this: I think that Marco Rubio is way down to Trump in his home state of Florida because he ran as a Tea Party conservative, went to D.C. and then signed up with Chuck Schumer and the gang to try to do the Gang of Eight.
Mm-hmm.
And that just
There's no question that's hurt Rubio.
Well, that
during this primary
the people
season.
that voted for him were revolted, and is that the correct English there?
Yeah, they were revolted, and they have revolted.
Yes,
You'd use it
yes,
either
and
way.
yes. So that may be one key reason why Rubio is doing so poorly in his home state right now in the polling. But you're right, Brian. As we look, it's Rubio and Cruz trying to lay claim to. I'm the guy who can challenge. Here's the thing about it, though. By the way, how bad did Cruz did Trump win Alabama? Do we know yet?
I think he was around 38% in Alabama.
38%.
Yeah, I've been looking at the 37%, basically 36.7. Rubio was second at 21.6% in Alabama. And that 20% threshold, that becomes critical in places like Alabama. I don't know if there's a threshold in Alabama. I don't know, Ed or
There's
Fred.
a 50% for winner take all.
So Trump's not going to get there, but the question is, Rubio obviously is going to pick up some delegates in Alabama if 20% is the threshold. And then the question is Ted Cruz going to be able to pick up any delegates? I'm looking at the full results in Alabama.
He was
to see where
around
he was
17%, I think.
Somewhere in there.
In Alabama. So
By the way,
he's
guys, they've
beneath
just
that.
called Virginia for Trump as
Yes.
well.
Cruz right now is at 19% in Alabama. So
All right, so he's come up.
So he's on the threshold of being able to pick up some delegates.
Some
there.
of these states are only 8 or 9% reporting in. So as the night goes on,
this is 1% in Alabama right now.
We'll get a clarified picture as to thresholds and delegate apportionment.
So they've called Alabama for Donald Trump. I know Fox News has.
Yes.
But you're saying only 1% have officially voted, so they're going on exit polling.
Well, and right now, Fox is projecting 20 delegates for Donald Trump in Alabama, and I think what they're waiting to see is how the battle for second shakes out between Rubio and Cruz. Do one of them or both of them get over the 20% threshold? And they're running pretty much neck and neck. Rubio 21%, Cruz at 19%. So if Cruz gets up to 20%, maybe they split whatever delegates are available for the people that get over 20%.
Well, the number of delegates in Alabama is 50 delegates. Mm-hmm. So they're projecting that Trump only gets 20 at this point?
Well, that he has 20 at this point.
Oh, at this point, okay.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to live coverage as opposed to dead coverage on American Family Radio here. I guess taped coverage, you might say. Always like that TV when they said this is taped before a live audience. Yes. Remember those?
Yeah.
Remember those shows? And recorded before a live audience. You're listening to live coverage of Super Tuesday here on American Family Radio. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, we're waiting to see if Ted Cruz can win those three states. That may be the big news of the night if you want to consider a second place finish big news. But Fred, go ahead.
We haven't said much about the Democrats, but when we talk about percentages, Hillary Clinton is racking up huge percentages in all these other states outside of Sanders, Vermont.
Nobody's feeling the burn anymore, Fred.
No,
not Bernie Sanders.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, for Hillary Clinton, she already had, even though at this point, before Super Tuesday, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders were fairly close in terms of pledged delegates. It was the super delegates,
yes,
which there are only a handful on the Republican side, but there are a bunch on the Democratic side. Before Super Tuesday, she had 548 delegates to only 87 for Bernie Sanders, the majority of those being for Hillary Clinton, the super delegates. Those are party leaders and so on and so forth. So if she racks up today on super, it looks like she's lost only Vermont. I think Massachusetts is still fairly close between Sanders and Clinton. She's going to obviously is headed for the nomination.
Yeah, for the Democrats, there's 865 delegates at stake tonight. I mean, she gets 80-90% of that. No wonder on the weekend she started talking about my campaign is going national now.
Yeah, she, as I said earlier, the great thing for somebody like Senator and Secretary Clinton is that no more spending. We don't have to fight Bernie Sanders anymore. We just save our money for Trump or whoever wins the Republican.
Right.
And she's already verbally starting her attack against Trump. So she started her national campaign already.
I don't know if you want to do that right now.
Well, Trump,
early on.
the problem for Trump, if you're a Donald Trump supporter, is that you cannot, at this point at least, you cannot discount the challenge from Cruz and or Rubio. So you've got to focus your attacks on those guys. And now he doesn't play by the rules, so he may say, I'm starting my national campaign too, and I'm going to start talking about Hillary. He may be far enough ahead after today to have that luxury.
He was asked that question this morning on Fox News. It was very interesting.
Trump was?
Trump was. He was asked, when are you going to turn that corner? And he found out, I guess New York Times today said the Democrat strategy, if it's Donald Trump at the top of the Republican ticket, their strategy is going to be to put Bill Clinton out there preaching against Donald Trump. Trump said, bring it on. Bring it on. If they want to call me a sexist, I got a reply for Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
So
Bill
if
Clinton,
nothing else, it's going to be entertaining.
Bill Clinton is the one guy that insulates Trump from all the accusations about sexual infidelities and all that.
That's why this is such a weird. This is a weird campaign year.
I can see Bill Clinton and Donald Trump at an event looking at each other, going, "You say what you know. You better not say what you know, because I know stuff on you too."
Because when it comes to this race, Mr. President, what happened in Las Vegas doesn't stay in Las Vegas.
No. Well, I don't think with Donald Trump, the thing about him is some used to call Ronald Reagan the Teflon president because nothing ever stuck to him in terms of criticism. With Donald Trump, the same is true. He's not affected by, well, good night. He brags in one of his books about his sexual conquest. So, which are what? How many? A lot of women.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say, Brian? A lot of women. So, I mean,
and according to him, they're very famous women and they're very married women, and there's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them. And he said. So, what I'm saying is, your skeletons in Donald Trump's closet. He doesn't have a closet.
Yeah, for him, that's a resume enhancer.
Exactly. So, I mean, you're not going to damage Trump with, hey, man, the guy's a serial adulterer. People are going to go, well, he's a billionaire in New York who's not a Christian. Duh. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing.
You know what I think is interesting about the national campaign, assuming for the sake of argument that Trump takes the GOP nomination. I read an article last week that 80% of the opposition research that the low information media has done on Donald Trump, they have not used. In other words, they're saving it for something. And I think what they're saving it for is for Donald Trump to get the GOP
What could possibly hurt him, O'Brien? Well, with voters. I mean,
the scandal with money is where he's vulnerable, I think.
You mean not raising enough money for his campaign?
Well, just scandal. Ties with the mob. This Trump University.
You're talking potentially now.
Potentially,
there's no.
No, I don't think there's any sexual stuff that hasn't already come out. So I think where they're going to try to hit him on some of these other scandals that may have to do with his mob connections, have to do with fraud cases like with Trump University and potential scam that thing is.
Yeah, because I think the only place he's really vulnerable, because so many people they have thrown in with Donald Trump on the Republican side. They've thrown in with Donald Trump, and this is what they've said. I believe he's going to do what he says he's going to do. I like the way he talks. I believe he's going to do what he says he's going to do. The only vulnerability he has is if you prove from his past that he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. You've got to be able to break that image that people have of Trump as a person who can fix the economy, build the wall,
Let me inject here, and then we'll continue on. Just to be clear, because I want to be clear. This mob connection supposedly is just hearsay at this point. There's nothing.
ABC and CNN have done stories documenting connection.
Some people how serious? Somebody said today, if you do business in New York and you're a billionaire, you're dealing with the mob.
Yeah,
somewhere
simply because of unions and all that.
Somewhere or another. But I just want to make sure we clear that nobody's accusing. At least I know of dealing in gangs or drugs or international crime or anything like that. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, CNN and ABC have run stories about those connections, and that could be some of what they're holding on to spring.
We're citing ABC and CNN.
ABC and CNN, they are the sources.
I had not seen those, so
right. Those are the sources of those stories. And like Ed was saying, if you what Donald Trump has said, hey, if you do construction work in New York, you're going to have to deal one way or another, with the mob.
Same thing with the use of illegal immigrants. That's been one of the criticisms thrown against Trump is he wants to build a wall. But when his buildings are built, they use illegal immigrants. And his answer, I think, is for both this mob thing and then the illegal immigrants is, look, I pay construction companies, who bid, and whoever they use is up to them. So, I mean.
But the mainstream media will not buy that. They'll still come back and say he has a responsibility, means he's taking the stand. He has a responsibility to check out those companies that are winning the bids of the contracts that he puts out.
Well, I understand that, but that's an irrational environment, election. I'm not sure that this qualifies for that. But Donald Trump's he's gonna say what he's been doing all along. He's gonna say, look, I don't check this. I run businesses. I get the job done. If these construction companies, have ties with the mob, how would I know? If the FBI doesn't know, if the FBI can't prove it, how am I supposed to prove it? I think
one of the contrasts, you think back to Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney got into big trouble because he had illegal aliens doing landscaping on his property. And his defense was, hey, I just hired the landscaping company. I don't know who they hire. And the low information media beat him about the head and shoulders with that. So far, they've given Donald Trump basically a pass. They brought it up, but they're not making an issue of it.
By the way, who do you mean when you say the low information media? Who is that?
That would be everybody,
except us,
with the exception.
That's why people.
That's right.
Listen to American Family Radio. You're listening to Super Tuesday coverage of on here on American Family Radio, as we watch the returns from across the 11 states that voted in the Republican primaries, and then 14 states in the Democratic primaries. I guess two notes: Hillary Clinton. The headlines would be Hillary Clinton basically is walking away with the Democrat nomination. She can save her money and get ready for Donald Trump if he's the Republican nominee. That yet is not so, but it may be. It's looking like it may be so. Donald Trump, the second highlight is that Donald Trump is doing very well across the country. And, in fact, what did you see there on Alabama, Fred?
I'm looking at Arkansas. Rubio right now is enjoying the lead in Arkansas.
5%.
5% over Trump, and Cruz in third. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Arkansas, because that is one of the states where Cruz was up by a couple of percentage points this morning in the polling. So that is very interesting.
Rubio, it would help Marco Rubio if he actually wins a state and not just picks up delegates.
Yes.
To have a win.
He hasn't had a win yet.
He hasn't had a win yet.
Yeah.
He could be 0-16 here soon.
And he is going to pick up some delegates. I think he's projected to get 12 in Virginia. So he is going to pick up some delegates tonight, and that will, in his mind, be a justification to keep going.
Right.
Donald Trump, I guess he'll be speaking later on tonight.
He's got a news conference, actually, Tim, in about 10 minutes.
Donald Trump in 10 minutes.
In Florida, in Marco Rubio's home state.
Well, with his usual humility, Donald Trump will gracefully say that he whooped little Marco today.
And it was a huge win tonight.
He was huge, and Ted Cruz is still lying. That's going to be Donald Trump's speech in a little bit. Hey, folks, a little bit. It's wouldn't you say it's zany out there? It's I told somebody today I feel like Alice, and I'm in Wonderland with and politically watching the political landscape here recently. And if you get Trump v. Hillary, if that's the way it turns out, then the old expression "you ain't seen nothing yet" from Turner Bachman Overdrive, 1974. That's what we're going to be experiencing. Well, joining us to Turner Bachman Overdrive, Fred, by the way, is not a law firm.
No, they're a Canadian group, though. I'm glad
you brought
Canadian?
that in.
Oh, they're
I'm glad you brought
Canadian.
that
Wow.
in.
Well, they had the beards for it.
I didn't know they were Canadian. Okay.
He's been waiting months to slap that on you.
I thought I was schooling Fred over here as the old man.
Hey, listen, I was a DJ. I started the business as a DJ.
Okay, my apologies. See,
That's
I've been
all right,
humbled
I
here.
apologize to Canada.
Yeah, that's amazing. Joining us to give us his thoughts on what's happened so far this evening is our good friend Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council. He also has a program here on AFR in the afternoons, Washington Watch on American Family Radio. Tony endorsed Senator Ted Cruz early on. And Tony, you with us?
I'm here, guys. I'm tuned into this high information radio. And glad to be with you.
Hey, you in Baton Rouge or you in D.C. today?
Actually, I'm in Baton Rouge because we are having today, Louisiana had their presidential caucuses where we select our delegates. And so, in fact, I'm actually running a little late to get back to my studio from being at the caucus. And then, of course, this Saturday, we have our actual primary where the rest of the delegates will be awarded to the winner.
Okay, well, what's going to happen in Louisiana? Any predictions there on the Republican side?
I gave up trying to predict this election cycle after I got it wrong about 5 times. It's just been amazing. This does not fit any patterns or models. And I'm just, one of the things we're seeing, and we saw it again tonight in several of these southern states, where evangelical voters were clearly the majority, upwards of 70 to even 80% of voters turning out were evangelical. However, we're finding that definition is somewhat elastic because it's being stretched and used, I think, in ways that it was never intended to be.
You mean the word evangelical?
The evangelical,
okay.
That it is, it's kind of become a description for a lot of different things. The good news is that more people are being energized in voting, but I'm a little discouraged, or not discouraged. I said concerned, I should say, that there are many evangelicals that I think are operating out of fear and frustration rather than faith and reason. And that doesn't mean they have to support my candidate. The candidate I'm supporting, Ted Cruz, for reasons that are to me very clear. I mean, he's the best one to appoint. Select the next judicial candidates for the Supreme Court. I mean, he's argued 8 cases before the Supreme Court, 70 briefs before the court. However, just looking at the candidates in this race, we have several good Christian candidates in this race that are deserving of evangelical support. And I would think that they would be first in line for evangelicals to support based upon, biblical guidance, that we vote for those who fear God, able men, who have a disdain for greedy gain. But that doesn't appear to be happening in this cycle. That's a bit troubling, I think.
Fred?
Yeah, Fred Jackson here. Tony, what happened? What's happened to the hearts of these evangelical voters?
Well, and who are they again? Because, excuse me if I interrupt you, but just to say, you said, Tony, that the word evangelical is being tossed around by the news media, and they're saying the evangelical voters are going for Trump, and that may be true, but I saw a study today, a report today, saying the more religious, I should say,
the more often they go to church.
The more often they go to church, the more likely they are to not vote for Donald Trump.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So
and
we're talking about a segment of people who call themselves evangelicals.
We're talking once a month church people who call themselves evangelical Christians, and they're the ones going for Trump. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, no, I mean, you guys are absolutely right. That's what happens. So I think when you use like the definition that the Barna Group uses for evangelical, which is a very narrow set of criteria, the numbers of those going toward Trump dwindle quite drastically. But I think I'm going to go back to Fred's point. I think what is it that's causing many of these? And I have got some friends, very close friends that I've served with that are not only good Christians, but they know the political system and they're supporting Donald Trump. And I do think a lot of it is out of fear of what's happening in the country and the world around us, driven primarily by immigration and the threat of Islamic radicalism, as well as frustration with the Republicans who have overpromised and underdelivered. So I understand that. But as Christians, I think we got to keep our heads in the midst of turmoil, and that's not happening right now.
I love the way Donald Trump talks about groups. He'll say, tonight he'll probably say it again, he'll say, I love the evangelicals. And I feel like he's calling us like orangutans or something. I love the orangutans. I love the non-orangutans. I love the evangelicals. Who are they? Well, I don't know, but they're evangelicals, and I love them. And
according to 2 Corinthians, I mean, it's
it is something. I don't think we've seen anything like it in our lifetime. Brian, can you remember seeing anything quite like this in our lifetime politically?
This is just bizarre all the way around. And Tony, I guess I've got a second question for you. Marco Rubio is going to pick up some delegates tonight. I think they're projecting 12 in Virginia, for instance. Ted Cruz looks like he's in good shape in Texas to take the lion's share of the delegates there, and that I think will be pretty important for him. But let me ask you this question for both Ted Cruz. I mean, Donald Trump's obviously going to have a good night. What about Ted Cruz, and what about Marco Rubio? What do the results tonight mean for them going forward?
Well, I mean, we're seeing that there's really not room in the race for three. Company three's a crowd. And, I'm looking at where these votes will go. Many of the Cruz voters, their second choice is actually Donald Trump, believe it or not.
That's what I thought.
That's not necessarily the case for the Rubio voters. It's kind of like Cruz is in between the Rubio voters and Trump. I think you're going to hear a lot tonight on the media that, Rubio did well. I mean, he gets third place and he's declared the winner by some networks. But I think there's going to be some saying, if Ted were just out of the race, Rubio could do better. I think that's not going to be the case, because I don't think those Cruz voters go to Rubio. But the flip side of that is I do think the lion's share of Rubio supporters, with given a choice between Trump and Cruz, would go to Cruz. So I think that the path forward to challenge Donald Trump is for other Republicans, other conservatives to gravitate toward Ted Cruz.
I will say this, that if Donald Trump, now there's a lot of issues when you're running for president that, are out there that you have to have positions on, a lot of issues. But now, for the issues, Tony, that we speak to and Family Research speaks to, American Family Association, I'm talking about, an AFR, and that you speak to as president of the Family Research Council, and obviously we're not one-issue organizations either, but right at the top of the list for both of our organizations is the pro-life issue and judges. Because you can pass all the pro-life laws you want, but if judges strike them down,
right. We saw that with marriage.
Exactly. We saw that happen with marriage. So Donald Trump, I have heard him say, and again, this is if you believe him, and there are a lot of people who do believe him, and I don't know what to believe because he has no record of voting that I can look at to see where he stands. All I can go on is what he said in the past, what he says today, and whether you believe him or not, and that's up to each person to make a judgment. But he says that he wants Supreme Court justices like Scalia, like Thomas. I heard him say that. He says he's pro-life. Dr. Robert Jeffress has staked his whole credibility on Donald Trump being truthful on the fact that he's going to be pro-life when he gets into office. So some would say who vote for Trump, and they're Christians like us, they're going to say, look, Wildman, I believe him. He's converted to our side on the pro-life issue. Brian, we got Tony, we're going to say goodbye to you. So give us your thoughts, if you would.
I'll just let you answer the question you asked me, but it was a good one.
Okay, did I answer my own question?
No, he's
well, Tony, I think it'd be good to have you comment in response to what Tim was saying. About the fact that he supports his sister for Supreme Court.
Exactly. That's right. And his sister is not a conservative, strict constructionist when it comes to the Constitution and the courts. You think you're right to ask that question, because I think that is the single most important issue in this election cycle is the United States Supreme Court. Shouldn't be that way, but it is, and you need a president that knows how to pick the right candidates.
His sister's going to be in charge of the wall. She's not going to be a Supreme Court justice. I think that Trump announced that today, that he's going to assign sis down there to have a lookout station at the. I'm just kidding, folks. Just kidding. The wall just went 5 feet higher. All right. Hey, Tony, thanks for your work there in D.C. on behalf of the family and faith and freedom, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, guys. Great to be with you.
Okay, our good friend Tony Perkins. We're going to take a break for news, and I'm sure our news team will have the latest. We've got one more hour of coverage here for Super Tuesday. A lot of results will be coming in the next hour from Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, some states that Senator Ted Cruz needs to win in order to stay viable. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
American Family Radio.
AFR Talk. I'm Shirley Dobson, chairman of the National Day of Prayer Task Force. And on Thursday, May 5th, our nation is observing the 65th annual National Day of Prayer. And I'm asking you to join with me and millions of our fellow citizens to lift America before God's throne. And I want to thank you, and may God's blessings be upon you and our wonderful country.
Faith, family, freedom.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk.
A ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Chris Woodward. It's beginning to look like a big night for Donald Trump in Alabama, Massachusetts, Tennessee, and Georgia, where the billionaire investor has picked up wins in the primaries. Like it or not, right or wrong, Kelly Shackelford with Liberty Institute says voters are upset with Republicans.
They took over the House and the Senate with record numbers, and then they did nothing. They're not even willing to fight a president who was against them. So I think the frustration level was, and really the betrayal is so high.
Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton has racked up wins in Georgia and Virginia, as well as Alabama. Bernie Sanders won Vermont. The voting just wrapped up in Texas, and voting ended in Arkansas in the last half hour. Caucuses in Colorado and Minnesota are underway. A judge in Chicago has dismissed a lawsuit challenge against Ted Cruz.
A complaint said Cruz is not eligible for the Illinois presidential ballot because he was born in Canada. Some legal experts say Cruz is eligible because his mother was an American citizen when he was born. A Cook County judge has dismissed the case on a technicality, saying the lawyer who filed the complaint did not give a copy to Cruz or state electoral board members as state law requires. The lawyer says he'll decide whether to appeal after Super Tuesday. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A New York court is refusing to throw out a fraud lawsuit against Donald Trump over his former school for real estate investors. The 4 appellate justices also denied a request from the state attorney general for an immediate judgment in the case. Eric Schneiderman alleges that Trump University was unlicensed and that it promised lessons with real estate experts handpicked by Trump, only one of whom had ever met him. He says the school used bait-and-switch tactics. Trump has denied any wrongdoing. Regardless of who wins the presidential election, broadcasters are cleaning up on campaign advertising.
The presidential wrestling match looks a lot of ways to a lot of different people. Here's a network executive's view.
It may not be good for America, but it's good for CBS.
CBS Chairman Leslie Moonves made the comment Monday at a Morgan Stanley Investors Conference in San Francisco. Even though Donald Trump, the flashiest performer in the presidential circus, isn't spending a lot on media, Moonves says Trump's presence has unleashed a tidal wave of ad spending at local stations.
For us, economically, Donald's place in this election is a good thing.
Moonves added he's not taking sides. I'm Warren Levinson.
San Francisco supervisors have voted unanimously to increase the legal age to buy tobacco products from 18 to 21. Opponents say the proposal conflicts with California law. San Francisco becomes the second largest city after New York City to raise the minimum wage to buy cigarettes and other tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. Hawaii and Boston also require tobacco buyers to be 21. The Food and Drug Administration's new commissioner is promising his agency will do all it can to prevent opiate abuse, save lives, and treat dependents.
Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf has already pledged to add stronger warning labels to commonly prescribed opioids and consult more with outside advisors. He's also highlighting the potential of new painkillers designed to discourage abuse, for instance, a version of OxyContin that's harder to crush for snorting. When dissolved, it turns into a thick jelly that's hard to inject.
President Obama has been meeting with leaders of the Senate on his upcoming Supreme Court nomination, but GOP leaders are still saying no dice. They won't consider any name Obama sends them.
Returning to the Capitol from the Oval Office session, GOP leader Mitch McConnell said he made clear to the president there'll be no hearings and no vote.
This is going to be decided by the American people, and the next president, whoever that may be, will fill this vacancy.
Democratic leader Harry Reid observed, I guess they're waiting for President Trump. Meantime, White House spokesman Josh Earnest says Obama hasn't given up hope. Mark Smith at the White House.
And South Dakota's governor has vetoed a bill that would have made the state the first in the U.S. to approve a law requiring transgender students use bathrooms and locker rooms that match their gender at birth. The American Civil Liberties Union and the Human Rights Campaign insisted it was discriminatory. Republican Governor Dennis Dugard says he needs to research the measure and that it does not address any pressing issue. His words.
Parenting is a multifaceted challenge, and it's important that our kids know our values.
Introducing new parenting resources from the AFA Cultural Institute and parenting expert John Rosemond. These 4 DVDs on biblical parenting address the issues of discipline, seasons of parenting, the folly of modern child psychology, and raising teenagers. Find these and all the resources of the AFA Cultural Institute at afastore.net.
This is Election Coverage 2016 on American Family Radio. An analysis of Super Tuesday results from a biblical perspective. Brought to you in part by AFA Action.
Go to AFA Action. AFA Action. Check that out. AFA Action. Our radio program for the next hour is brought to you by ourselves. That's right, Ed?
Yes.
AFA Action is sponsoring this hour of
yes.
programming on American Family Radio.
That is true.
We're thankful to ourselves for sponsoring this show. What's available there, in all seriousness, is some good stuff at AFA Action. It's a voter guide which breaks down a lot of candidates, not only presidential, but other Senate, congressional races. And we and other people who've been a part of this voter guide. This is an online voter guide, and it's much more detailed and comprehensive than you're used to with the simple little voter guides. Remember, people used to pass them out at church, and they had 10 questions of each candidate, and the candidates just they just lied a lot of times, to borrow from Donald Trump here, on a lot of these. Well, they can't on this particular voter guide because we check everything out. Who's giving the money to the campaigns? We put that on there. Who are their endorsements? We put that on there. What's their voting record? Very conservative, conservative.
These issues, yes, these issues that are
we
important.
rank them very conservative, moderate, very liberal, very liberal. I mean, it's not just liberal or conservative.
Right.
So it's a very comprehensive voter guide. Please go there and check it out at AFA Action.
And Tim, I will also add on that if some of our listeners are not yet registered to vote, for some states, you can still get registered in time for a primary, but you can certainly get registered in time for the general election. So if you're not registered yet and you thought, well, I'd like to, but you can go to afaaction.net, and there are tools there that will help give you the information and tell you exactly what you need to do to get registered.
Okay. I'm Tim Wildman, Ed Battagliano here with me, Fred Jackson, news director for American Family News and OneNewsNow.com. And
big news this hour is that Ted Cruz has been declared the winner in his home state of Texas.
Leading by double digits, right?
Leading by double digits right now over Donald Trump, and up 20 points over Marco Rubio in third place.
What about Oklahoma or Arkansas? Anything?
In Oklahoma right at the moment, it's a fairly close race. Cruz has a tight lead there with about 30% of the vote in. I think it's about 3 percentage points over Donald Trump in Oklahoma. And we're watching in Arkansas also. Now, that was a place where the polls said that Cruz has a chance to win, and may still be the case. But at the moment, it's Trump and Rubio fighting it out in Arkansas.
With 15% of the vote.
With 15% in so far.
Joining us now in studio is Abraham Hamilton III, one of our new staff here at American Family Association. Abe hails from the great state of Louisiana.
I do.
And he came on board here. He's public policy analyst for us here at American Family Association. And Abe, what do you make of what's happened here tonight so far?
Well, I think with, as it's kind of been stated a little bit already, with Cruz being declared the winner of Texas, I think he can legitimately lay claim to the fact that he's the only real opposition to Donald Trump. You know, the best chance that the country, as well as the Republican Party, has to stop the Trump train, so to speak, is to throw their weight behind him.
That's what he's going to argue tonight.
And I think that's what he should argue. And I also think that it's about time for Governor Kasich and Ben Carson to call it a day. And I think that's the best thing to do for themselves as well as for the country.
I think if that were to happen, Ben Carson's about 6%, maybe nationally in these races. I think Ben Carson's votes go to Ted Cruz, despite the fact that they got into it a little bit in Iowa. This is my own. I have no way of knowing this. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Which would help Cruz if Carson were to get out. Of course, Carson said that, we got an expression here in the South, bless his heart. and I mean nothing disparaging against Dr. Carson, because he is a great, godly man with a wonderful testimony. He loves his country. He loves the Lord. Don't question any of that whatsoever. But there's what's the point really in staying in a race that you're polling 5, 4, 3%? That's my view. But we'll see. Maybe he'll decide tomorrow to get out. But I'm just saying that if he were to get out, Carson, I think his votes go to Cruz. And Cruz is leading in Oklahoma right now, 33% to 30 over Trump. So if, again, folks, make no mistake about it, this is a big night for Donald Trump.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, wait on him. Okay. He'll be glad to tell you in just a little bit. Amazing. By the way, an aside, I watched his son. His sons are very good public speakers, by the way. They do very well on the media. But one of his sons the other night did an interview with Greta Van Susteren. It was about a 4-minute interview. And maybe I didn't have enough to do, but I decided to count the amazings. And there were 12. 12 amazings in 4 minutes. And I thought that must have been the first word he learned under Daddy Donald. Son, repeat it back to me now. Amazing. He said it, honey. Come here. He said amazing. Anyway, what I'm saying is we're talking about Cruz finishing first in Texas, which is the largest state tonight at play, and potentially winning in Oklahoma. And we're talking as if that's big news, and it is big news if you're looking at second place right now. Donald Trump, make no mistake, is winning across the board in the other states. Marco Rubio is not going to win anything, it doesn't appear, tonight.
He'll probably pick up some delegates.
He'll pick up some delegates.
Cruz will make the argument that he's the only other candidate to win states.
Right.
Iowa and now Texas.
Right.
Texas.
And if he wins Oklahoma,
that's right.
If he wins Oklahoma, he can say, listen, I beat Donald Trump in 3 places. How many of you beat him in, Marco? So I mean, there's going to be that. And Marco Rubio would do the same thing if he were in Ted Cruz's place. He would say, listen, I beat Trump 3 places. You've not won any. It's time for you to bow out of the campaign. So if you don't want it to be game over because you like the excitement of a pennant race, you can only hope that the others get out and leave Cruz to go mano-mano with Donald Trump for a Republican primary, which would make the establishment. I think the establishment would commit suicide actually en masse. They would do a Bob Jones. What's the guy's name who had the
Jim Jones.
Drink the Kool-Aid?
Yeah, Jim Jones.
I think the establishment would drink suicide Kool-Aid en masse if it were Cruz v. Trump.
Because if you're the establishment, who do you pick in that race?
They hate Trump, but they hate
Cruz.
They hate Cruz too. But the interesting thing is here, Cruz could make the argument that, hey, I'm a lifelong Republican. I've been in the party, okay? I'm part of the organization. So, join me. You may not like me because I'm too conservative, establishment, but listen, I'm the best alternative you got to a fella who has not been a Republican. That is Donald Trump. Whether any of this will stop the Trump train, I don't know, but we're just sort of speculating if Cruz wins Texas. He's going to win Texas, maybe by double digits, and that's good for Ted Cruz and his supporters because it would be humiliating to lose your own home state, which is what Marco Rubio might be looking at.
And Cruz faced some opposition as a home state, too. There's some high-profile people who were speaking in favor of Donald Trump there. Phyllis Schlafly
Yeah.
Right, of Eagle Forum.
Of Eagle Forum.
Dr. Robert Jeffress.
Some very well-known people were rooting for Trump. So Cruz has overcome some opposition there, and he has to be very happy with that showing tonight. But, the dynamics of this, and we've been talking about it, I mentioned the top of the last hour, the exit polling today. What we're seeing is a huge wave of opposition to Washington. Mm-hmm. So that's what the dynamic of this election is coming down to. There are millions and millions of Americans who are fed up with the way things are in Washington. And on the other side of things, those who support Hillary Clinton, the exit polling showing today, on the other side of things, there are still millions who think Barack Obama has done a wonderful job, and that's why I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton, because she is promising to continue what Barack Obama did.
Right.
Hey, what's the attraction you think of Donald Trump?
I think
give me two things that are really attracting people to his campaign.
I think two things. First, the entire anti-Washington sentiment.
Like Fred just talked about.
I think, that Fred just mentioned. I think that's bigger than the establishment expected, and I think it is the thing that is driving this election cycle to the degree where lots of Republican voters are even, jettisoning not only principles but even reasoning to get behind who they believe to be a strong man who will take it to Washington. And I also think behind that, I think it may be even twofold: the economy as well as the Islamic ISIS crisis situation.
They think they think Trump can get the economy going again.
Yes, I think they're
businessman, successful.
Very many people who perceive him to be Trump, the dominating businessman, billionaire who will get this country straight back together. And
he has a related to that point. Those were your 2 points about why there's more to it, but those are the big two.
Yeah.
He has a strong, what I would call, I'm talking about Trump now, a strong American or economic nationalism, Ed.
Yes.
Appeal. That is Donald Trump. He said, listen here, China.
Right.
Or we say in the South, China. Listen here, China. This is what he's saying. China, Mexico, Japan, and he threw in somebody else the other day. Was it Vietnam or somebody?
Well, Mexico. He's knocked Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is, and he may be right. This is where you lose me a lot on this trade stuff. Is that we're not getting treated fairly, we the United States, on the trade deals, and Donald Trump says we're going to change that. What do you got, Fred?
Fox News is now projecting that Ted Cruz has also won Oklahoma tonight.
That's
just
big
called.
Oh,
news.
That's big.
That is huge.
That's big.
That's big. That means Ted Cruz.
Is huge.
That means Ted Cruz has won Texas and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Now you say, well,
and Iowa.
In Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Now you say, as let us reiterate, folks, lest you think we're living in la la land. We understand that Trump's the big winner tonight, okay? But what the reason we say that's big news, Abe, is because what you said earlier. Now Cruz can say to the other candidates, the other people supporting the other candidates, namely Rubio, listen, I won. I've won 3 states now. You've not won any. And so therefore, if you oppose Donald Trump, it's time to get on my get behind my campaign.
Absolutely. And I think that message will also resonate with some people who may be tepid Rubio supporters, to show, hey, listen, America, particularly Rubio supporters, I've won against Trump. In spite of everything else that has happened, I have won. If you truly believe we need a Republican nominee who is not Donald Trump, you need to hitch your wagon to my train, because I've demonstrated, in spite of all of these things, that I've been able to beat this guy.
Well, and let's remember too, just coming back to Abe, to your first point for the fascination with Donald Trump, the anger issue. Let's remember, in the last 2 midterm elections in 2010 and 2014, Republicans sent entire new waves.
Yes, record
waves to the House and the Senate because they wanted things done differently. Those were anger elections.
Yeah.
And now that things still don't change,
yes,
I think that is probably what has lit. Maybe some people call it irrational anger. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly, very emotional response to the Trump campaign. These Republican voters wanted change. They send people up to Washington. They don't seem to be able to either get it done or they get co-opted. And I think that's why the anger is burning towards the establishment.
And it'll be interesting when tonight is over to add up the percentages of the votes between Trump and Cruz, because they are both anti-establishment.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
both anti-establishment.
Right. Absolutely.
I tell you what, the other thing, if Marco Rubio does not win any states tonight, 2 weeks from tonight is the primary in Florida.
That's right.
If he loses there, it's over for Marco Rubio.
I wouldn't be surprised if Rubio doesn't drop out between now and Florida.
He'll stay in surely till Florida, don't you think? His home state.
Would you want to stay in if you're going to get trounced?
Yeah.
Well, now, if
you
it
want
looks
to get
like,
humiliated,
now that's true. If it looks like he's 30 points behind the polls, going to get trumped. You don't want to have to. I understand
in your home state. You're listening to Super Tuesday coverage here on American Family Radio. The big winner tonight, the Democrat side, is Hillary Clinton. She's just wiping Bernie Sanders off the map.
She's so far won everything except for Vermont, although it is very close in Massachusetts between Clinton and Sanders. Yes.
Yeah, it's not going to matter because she's cleaning up across the rest of the states. If you want establishment on the Democrat side, they've been behind Hillary Clinton all along, because she's Hillary Clinton and it's her turn, and she's she lost to Barack Obama surprisingly 8 years ago in the Democrat primary, and so there's really no challenger except for Sanders. Sanders is running. Sanders is a sincere socialist. I'll give him that much. He's nothing much phony about him.
Right.
He believes in government taking over everything.
He's not going to lie to you.
No.
He's in favor of this.
Well, let me just put it this way. Socialism believes that the big national government taxes people at a very high rate, and he would tell you in return for that, you get a lot of stuff like free health care, free college education, things like that. That's what he would tell you is, that's the humane way to approach government. And nobody like that's even come close to being elected in America today, except in Vermont.
Right.
But being as secular and as center left, maybe as some Americans have become today, they're still not ready for just outright socialism,
Right.
So that's why another reason
even Hillary Clinton ran to the right of him, of Sanders. Even she was saying, "Look, you can't promise free stuff to everybody." So when Hillary Clinton moves to the right,
she's probably really
Bernie
glad he's basically crushed tonight because she doesn't have to go to these debates and say "me too."
Right.
On everything that Bernie says he's going to do, I'm going to do just as much of it. Super Tuesday coverage here on American Family Radio. Fred, what's the latest again?
Well, let's go down and see what's been declared for Donald Trump tonight. Alabama, Georgia, Massachusetts, Tennessee, and Virginia, all in the win column for Donald Trump. For Ted Cruz, as we have been reporting, Texas, that was expected, double-digit lead there. But the big surprise, quite frankly, he's taken Oklahoma. We knew it was going to be close, but the speculation was that Trump was going to squeeze out Oklahoma also, but Ted Cruz has been declared the winner there. Now we're watching Arkansas to see what happens there, because that was supposed to be in the Cruz win column as a possibility, at least tonight. We're still watching. And as you have pointed out, Tim, with the exception of Vermont, Hillary Clinton has cleaned up. We're talking 40, 50 percentage points across the board tonight over Sanders.
Abe?
Yeah, and a point that Ed made and you made, Tim, and I think it's really important to highlight
Ed and I
this.
both made it?
You made two separate points, and I'm going to put them together.
And you're going to,
The 2010 and 2014 elections were clearly protest elections to the Obama secular progressive agenda.
Yes.
And the voters in America sent the Republicans to Congress to stop Obama's agenda, what they recognize as being anti-American. And I believe that protest vote, which is widely perceived as being ignored by the American populace, combined with Trump's rabid nationalism, has combined to present this type of furor that can even be deemed irrational by a lot of people, where they're saying, listen, we're tired of this. We're tired of seeing it happen, and we finally need somebody.
He's the vessel
and he's
for
the
a lot
vessel.
of them. I might add Ted Cruz, his campaign, as Fred cited, is a lot of people who are what would you call it? They're frustrated.
Yeah.
They would be called outsiders.
Yes.
So you combine the Cruz-Trump numbers, and it's a peasants with pitchforks,
Right.
Coming to take over the castle,
Right.
is what it is. And so people like Mitch McConnell and the establishment in Washington, they're not having a good night right now as they look across the country.
But that raises a very interesting point. At what point do these people in Washington, I'm talking about Republicans, have to pinch their nose and say we have to go with this candidate? Because they're out there still as late as today saying negative things about Donald Trump. And do they want to give the election to Hillary Clinton? At what point do they stop saying, all right,
who's they?
They being
Establishment?
I'm talking
Republican
about
establishment?
I'm talking about the Republican leadership.
Well, now I read something interesting today, and I apologize, I can't remember who the writer was, but I read, and I believe it was on Politico. The opinion of this writer was that if it came down to it, the Republican establishment would prefer Hillary Clinton becoming president if it kept the Republican Party intact and under the control of the establishment. What they do not want to see is the Republican Party get away from them, meaning the establishment. Now that's a bold.
That horse is out of the barn, my friend.
We're here. We're there.
That is a bold. That is a bold statement to say that they would prefer Hillary Clinton to beat Donald Trump if it could mean the peasants with the pitchforks quietly go back to their villages. What do you guys think? You think the Republican establishment, you think Karl Rove and Mitch McConnell and all these individuals, you think they would prefer to see Hillary Clinton win rather than see Donald Trump win?
Well, we've talked about a third party. People have been floating that idea for a few years. The third party's here. It's called It's called Republican 2.0.
Yeah,
is what it's called, and the Republican Party voters are rejecting overwhelmingly the status quo. They're angry, and by that I mean they're going for Trump or Cruz. Those two fellas right there, more than any others, represent rejection of the Washington. Ted Cruz calls them the cartel.
Yeah.
And Trump, what does Trump call them? The guys I used to give money to?
Yeah. Well, it goes back to Fred's point about if you add Trump's
I made
votes,
that point actually. But
you
ahead.
made okay.
Yeah.
Well, both of you and I'm doing like Abe. I'm putting them together.
Fred made it too, so we both made it.
If you add Trump and Cruz together, that is a legitimate 70%, 75% vote in rejection of the establishment.
Let me just say this too. Marco Rubio was dead wrong on the Gang of Eight, but Marco Rubio has a 95% conservative voting record.
Mm-hmm.
This is the last gasp of air for the establishment. Rubio, he wasn't their first choice.
Right. Yeah. Their
first choice was Jeb Bush.
Yeah.
They defaulted to Rubio, hoping, well, at least maybe we can hang on to Rubio. Now he's doing okay some places, but he's not going to win any states tonight. So what I'm saying, the establishment, the Washington status quo establishment is they may be seeing the gallows in front of them because by that I mean they're gonna they'll still have their cartel or their Washington group together. But they're all looking at this going, my word.
But it's going to be like one of those zombie movies where they have all the windows boarded.
Exactly.
And they're not afraid to look outside because they see the average Republican voter lurking.
We're going to take a break right here. And then when we get back, we'll give you the latest results. Oklahoma's been called for Ted Cruz tonight. That's a little bit of a surprise. Ted Cruz has won his own home state, I think by double digits. Texas, that's big. So Ted Cruz will... have a victory speech tonight. That's what they do nowadays. If you finish second, you have a victory speech. Rubio, I saw Rubio did it. Cruz did it. We've made history tonight. He said after South Carolina, I went, Ted, you finished third, man. You didn't make history tonight. But all these guys, they got to spin it in the best possible way that they can to keep their folks excited. And I think that Ted Cruz can legitimately spin it and say, "Listen, I'm the contender with Trump. I'm our only chance as a Republican candidate to beat Trump." Trump's going to say, "Hey, it's over. Basically, I won all over the country, and let's move forward."
And it was huge.
And it was huge. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Stay with us.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. In the upcoming elections, as you ponder the various qualifications of the numerous candidates, do not overlook one of the most important qualifications, their morality. History has proven that a leader's public policies most often flow from his private beliefs and behavior. In fact, Jesus himself set forth this principle in both Matthew and Luke when he declared that not only is a tree known by its fruits, but that bad roots simply cannot produce good fruit. For this reason, Founding Father John Witherspoon declared, "The people in general ought to have regard to the moral character of those whom they invest with authority, either in the legislative, executive, or judicial branches." Very simply, morality matters not only in the family and the church, it also matters in civil government. Therefore, as you vote in the upcoming elections, give heavy weight to a candidate's morality.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact Wall Builders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the big ship out in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Your great-grandmother did her part, too.
Was she on a ship?
Oh, no. She stayed back home. She and a lot of her friends worked really hard in a factory because the men had gone off to war.
Ooh.
And they held scrap metal drives to help in the war effort. The folks back home were heroes, too.
Here at the American Family Association, we consider you the heroes back home. As you fulfill your responsibility of caring for your family day to day, your partnership with us is crucial as we fight the enemies of freedom in America. Thank you for your commitment to the American Family Association.
Grandpa, what's a scrap metal drive?
Let's get some cookies, and I'll tell you all about it.
Election Coverage 2016 continues on American Family Radio. Brought to you in part by AFA Action.
15 minutes, 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to American Family Radio's coverage of Super Tuesday. We are doing something we don't do often, and that is we're live video streaming here on AFR. We have our Facebook page. You can check out American Family Radio and watch the live video stream of our coverage here this evening. It's big because there are 11 states that have voted or are going to. I guess Alaska still remains to, still has their polls are open. But
it's a caucus state.
It's a caucus state.
And Wyoming as well is a caucus state.
Well, you talk about a caucus in Alaska.
Colorado is also a caucus state.
No telling how far you have to drive to caucus in Alaska.
Right. Minnesota is also caucus states.
So the cold weather places, they just decide to go ahead and caucus.
I guess they all get together, have coffee.
Have some coffee.
Kentucky. It's a supper. Yeah. It's a church supper. Yeah. Bring a dish.
Church supper.
Play some cards.
Yeah.
And hey, we got that caucus.
Come on, I win this hand. You vote for Hillary.
We're going to caucus here at 11, everybody, after the movie's over. So you stay. Anyway. So we're but for a lot of the 11 Republican, 14 Democrat, Democratic voting. Is it Democrat or Democratic voting? The Democrat Party, I should say, their voting basically has selected Hillary Clinton all the way across the board.
And we got to issue an apology to Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
We have been saying the only state he picked up was Vermont, his home state.
Yeah.
But we have been corrected.
Yeah.
There is an unknown reason, but he has won in Oklahoma.
And but during the break, we said, that is totally random.
What happened?
He won his home state of Vermont. It's close still in Massachusetts. And then right in the middle of the country, Oklahoma, for whatever reason.
In the Bernie Sanders column.
The People's Republic of Oklahoma have spoken. Bernie Sanders is their man. I guarantee you all that voting was in Norman and Stillwater. Huh?
The college towns.
The college towns. That's about it. That's who voted probably in that race. But anyway, Hillary Clinton's going to clean up. She's going to have to stop spending. She will now be able to stop spending money fighting Bernie Sanders and save her money to take on Donald Trump or whoever Ted Cruz or whoever the Republican nominee will be. I think it's safe to say, folks, that the Republican nominee, if you had to go to one of Donald Trump's casinos and bet, you would say probably 75-80% that it's going to be Donald Trump, 20-25% that Ted Cruz can beat him. I think that's about where it would be right now. Some would say it's probably 90-10. Okay, whatever. I'm just saying that Ted Cruz is going to win Oklahoma and Texas tonight. Keep in mind, Texas is is it the second most populous state in the country, I think, second or third.
A lot of delegates, 155 delegates.
Yeah, now he won't get all of them.
No.
Cruz won't get all of them because it's a proportional state, unless you win 50%. He's not going to win 50%. But still, Ted Cruz is going to do well with the Texas delegates and Oklahoma. He's been projected as the winner there. So Ted Cruz can say, hey, listen, I beat Donald Trump 3 places. How many have you beat him, Marco? And there's crickets because Rubio is not going to win any states tonight, despite the fact that he did do good in, I say good. Well, he may win. I don't know. I haven't checked Arkansas, but I know Rubio did good in Virginia by good. Well, you're listening to American Family Radio. Todd Starnes is with us. Todd has a commentary each day here. A couple of times we air it here on American Family Radio. And what we like about Todd is about once every 10 days he's going to say something that we get calls about. And so we have a special staff person designated as the Todd Starnes offended me receptionist. And we've trained her well. No, I'm kidding. Todd does great. He does great commentaries that
insightful and humorous,
and sometimes provocative.
Yes.
Todd, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Sometimes those telephone calls are for my family.
They're offended by their.
Well, Mrs. Starnes, I got to tell you,
you'd have to just don't buy him a Christmas gift.
This is Todd's Aunt Lynn. I want to.
Hey, so Bernie, I guess one of the big stories is Bernie Sanders taking Oklahoma tonight. Todd, how do you explain that one?
Did they legalize marijuana in Oklahoma?
Had a lot of people drive in from Colorado today to vote, I guess.
What? I think one of the interesting things for me, and by the way, you guys mentioned Arkansas. It's too close for us to call right now.
Right.
Cruz could come out with a win there.
Where are you talking? Arkansas. Oh, Arkansas. Okay, go ahead.
Arkansas, which could be pretty significant. Cruz winning, of course, not only Texas but also Oklahoma. And you mentioned the proportional votes, guys, and this is pretty significant for Marco Rubio, who, by the way, is still a loser tonight. He has yet to win a primary. But the issue is in Texas and Tennessee, where Rubio came in third place, but he, at this point, has not reached that 20% criteria. That's the mark, where if you drop below 20%, you don't get any delegates at all.
Right.
Alabama, too. Alabama. Cruz is hanging on to 20.3% right now. Now, this is only 99% of the vote counted, so in Alabama I'm talking about. But you got to reach 20% in many of these states to get the delegates, get some delegates. Go ahead.
And I know your guys are probably monitoring this, but something really bizarre is about to happen here just in the next few seconds. Donald Trump is not holding a victory speech. He's holding a news conference in Florida. And the speculation is that somebody's going to be endorsing him tonight. We don't know who that person is, but and that's just pure speculation. But it's just an odd thing that Donald Trump would be doing that. Nevertheless, this is a great night.
You think it's Jeb Bush and the family?
No.
It's Barbara Bush.
That's what I'm saying.
Man.
I think Jeb's going to bring the family, and they're all going to hold hands with Donald Trump tonight, and that's going to be the shock endorsement.
I'm just kidding. This is a huge night for him, though. I mean, winning massively in places like Georgia and Alabama and Massachusetts. So what's really interesting, guys, is that Donald Trump won huge numbers among evangelical voters in the Deep South. And those were folks that, people thought were going to go for Ted Cruz.
And a lot of evangelicals did go for Ted Cruz, though. You're just saying it's split.
Yes, but a majority of those voters, a majority of people who identify as evangelicals went with Donald Trump. And that's not, it's not unusual in this particular primary season. We've seen that happen in other places. But it certainly is going to be a head-scratcher for a lot of evangelical leaders around the country. Have you guys heard about the numbers from Liberty University?
Go ahead.
So people have been talking about this. Of course, Jerry Falwell Jr. endorsed Donald Trump, came under a lot of fire. Mark DeMoss came out in the Washington Post today and had very critical things to say about Dr. Falwell. Well, it turns out that that Liberty University, that Lynchburg area, went for Marco Rubio, and the latest numbers I saw, Donald Trump was in fourth place.
Wow.
Fourth place.
So you have any predictions to make about Jerry Falwell Jr.?
Well, some are head scratchers. I don't know. The only thing I heard Jerry Falwell Jr. say is that Trump is a good businessman. That's what we need. Next question.
Exactly.
That was about all I heard in terms of his defense on why he supported Donald Trump. We're talking. Go ahead,
Tim. It really bothers me to see evangelicals bashing, folks like Jerry Falwell Jr. I mean, look, he's an American citizen. He's got a right to
I didn't bash him. Did I bash
him?
To
endorse.
Did I bash him? You're talking about somebody else besides me. I didn't bash him, did I?
Just in general.
Okay. Now I did attack Ben Carson, but he wanted to be attacked. If you remember.
Oh, that's right. During the debate, he said, "Somebody, please attack me," because it was all Trump, Cruz, and Rubio going back and forth.
That was the funniest line of the night.
It was the funniest line of the night.
From Ben Carson, no less.
Ben Carson.
Well, somebody please object to me.
Yes.
Somebody please attack me.
By the way, Ben Carson wants to have a big confab with everybody to talk about how uncivil things have been on the campaign trail. And when I saw that, I remembered a line from Star Wars, General Akbar. It's a trap. Don't go.
Yeah, it's a trap. Hey, listen.
If they're meeting in a closet, don't go.
Todd, let me ask you this. I know we're watching on Fox News as we're listening to you. We're watching on Fox News. Donald Trump is giving his speech, but he was introduced by Chris Christie. Now, this I know that Chris Christie has endorsed Donald Trump, but he's now like his bodyguard. He like walks around with Donald Trump. He introduces him. Have you heard any talk about?
Do you know
Chris
how many
Christie?
zeros that Donald Trump can put in your check, Ed?
Well, what I'm saying is, is there any talk about Chris Christie being a vice presidential, possible vice presidential candidate or attorney general? I mean, I'm just wondering why he is on the stump with Donald Trump.
Unlikely that he's a VP. I think Trump is going to have to go with someone who has experience working with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. That's something that he just does
An
not
insider.
have.
No, that would be funny. That would be funny. Go ahead.
My vice presidential candidate, John Boehner.
Tell me, people, who has the best tan? Me or John? Who's more orange? Raise your hand.
You guys.
Huh? I'm sorry.
You guys. I'm trying to figure out what I can say that won't generate telephone
Oh, well,
calls.
when Todd Starnes has to keep things in order, we know what the things have spun out of control. You're listening to Super Tuesday on American Family Radio. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano, Brad Jackson, and we're going to be here till 9:30 Central Time, so 47 more minutes. So we've extended our coverage. Why? Because Donald Trump's cutting into our time. That's why. And we're going to get it back here in a few minutes. Todd Starnes joining us from, are you in New York? I know that's where you work.
I am in New York, and I hope you have Donald Trump on a 7-second delay.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump was offended by the language of the former Mexican president the other day, and he doesn't even realize he's done the same thing. Anyway, as we say, rules don't apply to Mr. Trump in the way that they traditionally apply to others. You know what he reminds me of? I've mentioned this before, gentlemen, and I use that term lightly here, but
wow.
He reminds me of Charles Barkley in the sense that Charles Barkley is well known to be able to say anything he wants to, and he doesn't ever pay a price for it, no matter if it's racist, sexist, offensive, it doesn't matter. Charles Barkley says something, people say, so
That's
it's
just
Charles being Charles.
Yeah,
that's the norm. That's the norm
what
for Trump. Yep.
Huh? And that's the Trump rule. Now, at least for now. Rob Chambers is here with us, the National Field Director for American Family Association, Inc. National Action, AFA Action. Rob, Todd, we say goodbye. Thanks for being on with us, brother. We appreciate it. What's your website?
The website is toddstearns.com, and you can join all of our social networking platforms there, Facebook, Twitter, and also our brand new podcast.
All right, but I thought of one more question before you go, Todd, and this is going to be very interesting to watch in the next 24 hours. You have Cruz now having won Texas and Oklahoma and Iowa. He's going to say, and he's going to be right about this, he's the only one that's shown the ability to beat Donald Trump in a primary. He's won 3. Yes, he's lost how many? But he's going to look over at Marco Rubio and say, how many have you won? Mm-hmm. And Marco Rubio, as I said earlier, is going to have, to borrow from Simon and Garfunkel, the sound of silence because he's won none. Nobody else has either, and they're not going to. The only 2 fellas left are Kasich and Carson. They're not going to win anywhere, with possible exception of Ohio. Excuse me. That's questionable whether Kasich can win his own home state. So, that being said, here's my question to you. Cruz is loathed by the Washington Republican establishment. Okay? Trump scares them to death. So you got one candidate with Trump the Washington establishment is absolutely terrified by. This is my opinion. And with Cruz, they can't stand him because he doesn't go along with the establishment. He won't, like him or hate him. Cruz does his own thing because he says, this is what I said I would do, and I'm going to do it, and I don't care who likes me. He sits alone I'm told in the lunchroom.
Cafeteria.
In the Senate, because I guess he's got Mike Lee who come over there and say hello to him from Utah, but he's a pariah, they say, and so the establishment, they're not left with anybody. There's nobody between those two. So Cruz is going to say, come on, guys, that is the rest of the Republican Party. You say you want to beat Trump, that he scares you to death. I'm a lifelong Republican. I worked in the party. I've won races. You may not like me personally, but I'm the only alternative you got. So get behind me. Let's put our petty personal differences aside and let's do this. I want to know your reaction to the scenario I've just described in the next 24, 48 hours, because your Washington establishment people are going to be asked about this. What's going to be their what are they going to say about this situation?
We're already starting to see that narrative develop where they're saying, well, yeah, Ted Cruz won in Texas, but he had to win there. But he's not going to win strong in other states, and Rubio's going to do better. And Rubio, it's almost this idea in the mainstream media. The headlines tomorrow will be, Cruz wins Texas, but Rubio came in third, so Cruz should step aside. That's not their thinking.
Yeah, well, it's not. Anyway, go ahead.
But Tim, I think the bigger story that we need to be looking at is this new super PAC that's been formed with the intent of going after Donald Trump and stopping him. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. At the same time, I'm not quite sure the the establishment Republicans are going to tolerate a Donald Trump nominee. So I would not be surprised if everybody stays in just to prevent Trump from getting the number of delegates he needs to claim the nomination. And if that happens, then we go to Cleveland and all bets are off.
Well, Todd,
go ahead.
Todd,
Rob.
this is Rob Chambers with AFA Action. I wonder, what do you think the odds are if this trend were to continue with Donald Trump in the runaway train? What do you think the odds are of him beating the RNC's rules when it leads up to the convention?
Well, that's a great question, and I go back to the fact that the Republican Party forced Donald Trump early on to sign that loyalty pledge. Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
Now that pledge is coming back to bite them because they're about to violate the same pledge they forced Donald Trump to sign. If I was a betting man, and I said this months ago, I believe that if this goes to a brokered convention, I think they're going to have Mitt Romney step in and take on Donald Trump, and that's why I believe we've seen Mitt Romney stepping out and going after Trump over the past couple of weeks.
Well, if that happens, there's going to be World War III inside the Republican Party.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, and Donald Trump, his part of his loyalty pledge was he said, as long as the GOP doesn't play any games, so he would, if he was denied the nomination, he's going to go third party.
I got some issues with Mr. Trump on some of his positions, and I don't know that you can. I'm not personally satisfied you can trust him yet because he's flip-flopped so much over his career. However, that being said, the man is going through the process legitimately like anybody else. He's self-funded. You tell me they're going to drop Mitt Romney on him at the convention? Donald Trump will go up there and personally beat up Mitt Romney on the stage, like he did when he went into the ring on the World Wrestling Federation. Trump, I'm talking about.
That could be why he's keeping Chris Christie around.
That's right. I'm just telling you, it looks like The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Christie's standing back there. He looks like he's.
Well, listen, thanks so much, Todd. Take care, my friend. Appreciate your work.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care. Todd Starnes, a Southerner in exile in New York City. You're listening to.
What's his home state? What is Todd's?
Yeah, Todd's from
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Yeah.
Mississippi.
Is he from Mississippi?
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you got, Fred?
We're just monitoring Donald Trump has got his news conference.
He's
not
speaking.
a speech. It's a news conference. But he has just repeated his admiration of Planned Parenthood.
Sure did.
In the middle of the speech.
Help millions of women.
Help millions of women.
Yeah, of course. Now he
Is there a
parses
caveat
that,
there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he parses that by saying, I don't like the abortion part, and he goes to the women's health issues. I think he's trying to give himself some play with women when, all the accusations of being against women. He's going to say, no, look, I want health. I want women's health. I'll defund the abortion part. He has that.
But what bothers me, he can say, I'm going to do things to help women's health.
Right.
But why do you have to praise Planned Parenthood in the middle of that statement?
Because that's what he thinks.
They're the largest. They're probably the most visible, women's health age. Yeah, I believe they're horrific selling body parts. I don't want to be.
They're the largest provider of
defending,
abortions in America.
But they're the most visible, what they would declare women's health organization in the country. So I think it stands in for what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to parse this and say, I'm for preventing cervical cancer and breast cancer. I'm against abortion. So I think he's trying to split. I was going to say, use a biblical example. He's trying to walk the tightrope.
Yeah. You're listening to Super Tuesday coverage here on American Family Radio. Tim Wildman, Ed Vitagliano, News Director Fred Jackson. Rob Chambers is in with us. Rob, we have a voter guide. I wanted you to plug that for us real quick.
Absolutely. We just encourage our listeners and those of y'all that are watching online to go to afaaction.net and access our voter guide there. It's in-depth voter guide. detailed
presidential
information.
and some congressional, senatorial.
Yes, in about 10 states we have congressional elections as well, where you can identify.
And what's unique about our voter guide that separates us from all others?
Well,
why is it amazing?
Well, what's amazing about our voter guide, Tim, is that it's more than just a survey of where it gives an opportunity for candidates to give halo answers and to make themselves look good. Basically, what we do with our voter guide is we look at the information, where the money comes from, who these candidates endorse. It also matches their walk with their talk, and so we basically grade these candidates from very liberal to very conservative, and so it makes it available to voters to be informed so they can make a wise decision at the ballot box.
Tennessee, what's the results in Tennessee, Fred?
Looking at Tennessee, well, it certainly has gone to Donald Trump. Just looking at Arkansas here, and Cruz has now moved into second place in Arkansas against Trump, and it's still very close. Rubio, for a while there, was in second place. So Cruz is back in play there in Arkansas, but we still have a ways to go on that count.
I don't know where. So big winners tonight so far. Big winners tonight, Trump and Clinton. Mm-hmm. Ted Cruz has won Texas, and he's won Oklahoma, and he may win Arkansas. That's the big news in terms of can anybody go forward to challenge Donald Trump from here. Ted Cruz will say, yes, our campaign has proven we're the one campaign that can take on Donald Trump, and we beat him 3 times. Yeah, we've lost a bunch, but nobody else has won any.
Right.
Quite frankly, and I like a lot of things about Marco Rubio, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't drop out sometime in the next week or so, because he hadn't won anywhere, and where is he going to win? And he may get beat by a substantial margin in his own state of Florida. That's what the polling suggests right now. As Fred said earlier, the polling's been right. But
now Marco Rubio was he just had a you want to say he was just a rally tonight in Florida. He was at home, and he was saying it's good to be home, and in 2 weeks we are going to win Florida. And he actually said that Trump's numbers nationwide are going down and ours are going up. So maybe that's just an attempt to fire up the troops, but it appears that Marco Rubio believes he is still in it.
But don't you have to win somewhere?
He thinks he's going to win in Florida. That's what he said.
Let me just tell you this, and you know this, Ed. If the shoe were on the other foot, and Rubio had won 3 states and Cruz had not won any against Trump, Rubio would be saying, "Ted, it's time to get out and join our campaign." Okay, well that's what Cruz is going to say tonight. We're the only ones that have beat Trump, and we're the only shot you got if you don't want him as your nominee. Right. So, but again, I think it's ironic that the Washington that the Republican establishment's only choice, it seems to me, their only chance to stop Donald Trump, who they are scared to death of, is Ted Cruz, who they hate. So they're choosing between Hitler and Stalin. In their minds,
yes, in their minds, we want to say that's in the minds of the establishment.
In their minds, I'm using a metaphor.
I just want everyone to understand.
I know I'm from Mississippi, but I can use metaphors if I want to. Okay, and I'm using Hitler, Stalin as a comedic metaphor. Write that down. Okay. Or who was it says, write that in your newspaper.
I think this is going to be one of the fascinating election cycles. Gary Bauer was in his end of day.
It's going to be fascinating.
End of days.
End of day. His end of day. That's what he calls it. But he was speculating today. The word around Washington, D.C. is former mayor of New York, Bloomberg, is going to throw his hat in the ring. He's going to take votes away.
If that doesn't get America fired up, I don't know what will right there.
But
Michael
then,
Bloomberg.
Second rumor is there's going to be a conservative candidate that the establishment, the GOP establishment, is going to put forward.
A conservative candidate?
A very, very conservative candidate. Now, that's the way it was described. So that starts...
To run independent?
To run as an independent at the convention.
This is a John Grisham novel you just described.
Who do you mean as at the convention? You mean to try to...
Very conservative.
Well, they're very concerned about Trump. And
yeah,
so
but
there's going to be
that's only if it's a brokered convention.
Well, and this is where Mitt Romney comes in again. That's speculation.
Well, he's not very conservative.
You're going to have a man.
Dr. Carson
my
said,
sentiments exactly.
You talk about there's going to be chairs thrown.
Fruit salad.
There's going to be chairs thrown in Cleveland at the Republican convention if Trump wins and they try to stop him by parachuting in Mitt Romney to save the day. That just
if our nation wasn't at stake, I'd say this is so much fun.
I know, but it is serious stuff, folks. But my uncle used to say, you got to have a little fun or you go crazy.
Yep.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. We're going to go 30 more minutes with our coverage here, and then we'll be done for the evening.
American Family Radio.
AFR Talk.
Hello, this is Dr. Tony Evans with the Urban Alternative, and I want to challenge churches all over America to become part of the National Day of Prayer. In every direction we look in our culture, chaos has taken control. So it is incumbent upon God's people to turn around a culture in chaos.
The National Day of Prayer, Thursday, May 5th.
Faith, family, freedom.
American Family Radio, AFR Talk.
A ministry of the American Family Association.